Like I was just introduced, my name is Brian Hutchinson. I'm the Director of Shopper Marketing, Insights and Innovations at Georgia Pacific, specifically on the corrugated division, and we'll kind of get into what that looks like. But before we get started, I kind of wanted to find out who is in the audience. And so if you are with a brand marketer or CPG, raise your hand. Okay. If you're a retailer, raise your hand. Okay. If you're a developer, raise your hand. Okay. And those who didn't, what are you guys doing? Manufacturer. Okay. Media. What was it? Media. Okay. Excellent. So, just to kind of put a little bit of scale, because a lot of people know GP for different reasons. And so, most people know us for our consumer products. We're a brand ourselves, so Dixie cups, Brawny paper towels, Angel Soft, things like that. We're also really big into building products, so a lot of wood and lumber that you use to build homes and drywall, things like that. I come from that packaging and cellulose division, and so we make corrugate, or everyone else calls it cardboard. But we use it to manufacture point-of-purchase displays, e-commerce packaging, primary packaging, secondary packaging, retail signage, okay? We're part of Koch Industries. So Koch Industries is one of the largest private companies in the world, right around $115 billion in annual revenue. The one thing I like about Koch is we reinvest 90% of our earnings back into the companies. And so that gives us, not only from being a private standpoint, gives us a lot of ability to go do some interesting things, such as what I'm going to be talking about with augmented reality. But I thought I would start with this manifesto, because I think it will set up a tone for why we're doing some of the things that we're doing. And it says that we see corrugate differently. We don't see displays as just another way for your product to get to the floor. We don't make cardboard shelves. Whether it's a display, packaging, or a box that arrives at your customer's front door, we see these as opportunities to connect with your shopper and create a moment where your brand stands above all others. We see corrugate as a piece of white paper, a blank canvas to tell a story, even if just for a moment, where the shopper has extended you trust and put your brand in their cart. This is how we see corrugate, okay? So we're kind of taking a different viewpoint for what other experiences companies, brands, and retailers may have had with packaging. So we created a milestone, and this is actually in the store right now. It's a company called Parakeeto, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, but it's a first in our industry, and it's a pivotal one, because we see this as the future. But I think what we need to do is really talk about shoppers, okay? Because if you're going to be involved in AR or VR or XR in the retail or brand space, we have to get some fundamentals right. Because I hear all the time, different pitches from, platforms or developers of, hey, check this out. And it's like, but you don't understand some of the barriers that we're having to overcome from a shopper perspective or that shopper lens. And so back in 2007, Deloitte came out with what I feel is the best one-sentence definition for what shopper marketing is. And that is any marketing stimuli developed based on a deep understanding of shopper behavior, designed to build brand equity, engage the shopper, and lead him or her to make a purchase. Okay, best one-sentence definition I have found. It's both an art and a science. Okay, so I can have all of the qualitative or quantitative data on who my shopper is. Ultimately, that information has to manifest itself into something creatively that the shopper has to see or interact with. The reason why is because I could be a shopper who shops inside of Walmart is very much different than a shopper who shops inside of Walgreens. They might be the same exact person, but they're there for very different reasons. And so I might be going on my normal shopping trip, my stock-up trip at Walmart, and I'm going to be open to different types of communication. I'm going to be open up to different types of exploration. But if my 9-year-old is at home with a cold and I'm going to my corner Walgreens store, I'm going to beehive it straight from the front door to that cough, cold, flu section, and I'm going to drown out everything that stands in my way. But if you're a brand in that 12 feet of cough, cold, flu section, I'm all ears. Educate me, inspire me, tell me why your brand should be in my basket and the one that I'm purchasing and bringing home for my 9-year-old versus what's sitting right next to it, right? That's what we're talking about here. So let's talk about fishing, right? Natural transition, let's jump into it. So fishing is a huge industry, a $15 billion industry when you look at tackle and fishing poles and things like that. It's $43 billion when you look at the travel associated and licenses and boats and things like that. It's a huge industry. The number of fishermen has been increasing for the past 7 years. It's risen by 11%. But the number of youth participating in fishing has decreased by a third, or roughly 5 million, over that same exact time period. And so we asked our client, how are you going to overcome this? Because in a couple years, you're going to have a problem, right? You're going to start to see those numbers begin to plateau and eventually begin to fall. So how would you fix that? And they said, well, just like fish, men and kids are attracted to bright, shiny objects. And so we'll just go kind of tell kids to go buy their first fishing pole. And we said, no, that's not the right answer. Right? If the average angler is spending just north of $1,400, there's someone else who we need to be talking to, and that's dad. Okay? We need to be inspiring dad to bring Junior on your next fishing trip. Right? Inspire him to get them off their butts in front of the TV or playing video games and bring them outside on your next fishing trip. Buy them their first fishing pole. That's how you'll change that industry. And so, but if you look at it, it's two completely different strategies. One was going to be talking directly to the kids. The other one is inspiring dad, right? So if I was to put, communication in the store that says, kids buy your first fishing pole, it's going to perform vastly different than if I put a display that's inspiring dad to go buy Junior their first fishing pole and bring them along with on their next fishing trip. We came up with this a couple years ago, but if you watch ESPN right now, there's a whole PSA series on inspiring dads to bring their kids on their next fishing trip. We just got to it a couple years earlier, right? So how do we do this? A lot of this has to do with the identification of a shopper barrier and then a solution to overcome it. Right? So a shopper barrier is, what is that thing that is preventing a shopper from making a purchase for your brand? Right? So this gets into understanding who is it that we're talking to? Who is the shopper? How are they currently making their purchasing decisions? Right? You have to understand this. Why are they making those decisions? And then what is going to connect and resonate with that shopper in order to change their behavior? So we employ something called the connected shopper cycle. It's a proprietary model to GP, but it is out there in the public. But what it does, and there are several models like this out there, and how many of you are familiar with P&G's first moment of truth? Brand retailers out there? Yeah, been around for a long time. Right? So I came back from that day, worked for one of P&G's agencies, very familiar with it, but it hasn't been updated in a long time. So we created the connected shopper cycle, and it's completely agnostic when you take a look at in-store, online, digital, social, e-commerce, it doesn't matter. It's all, it's completely agnostic to that. But it's a decision journey map that incorporates that shopper behavior. And this is important for this audience, for AR, VR, XR. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. This is what the overall model looks like. If anyone wants a copy of this, we actually have posters, LinkedIn with me, and we'll get you out one, because it's really hard to read here. Why is GP in the XR space? We're a print company, right? The division I come from, we're print. We put ink to paper. So how can we become our own disruptor, right? There's a limit to how much I can communicate to the shopper through a display or a package or an e-commerce package, there's only so much real estate to communicate to that shopper. And so there's more storytelling that brands want to do. How can we help them educate, navigate, or inspire them, right? A principle called NEI, navigate, educate, inspire. But how can we connect the physical world to the digital world, right? How can we connect the things that we're manufacturing to the digital realm from an omni-channel perspective? There's more story to be telling. So this is what we did for Parakeeto. So it is the world's first display that runs a mobile web-based AR experience. And what it does, so let me tell you a little bit about Parakeeto first. Parakeeto is a Paris-based company that designs and creates a mosquito repellent product, okay? And it's a wearable, it's a wristband or a clip. It's refillable, it's all natural, so there's no DEET in it. The problem is that they were coming to the United States for the first time 2 years ago. And they have been trying to make more of an impact at retail. And so then they came to us and they said, hey, will you help us build out a display program? And we said, there are some new technologies out there that we can actually engage the shopper with some of these principles, the navigation, education, and inspiration, to actually make this pretty powerful. And so that's what we did. So we've been waiting, this is my 5th AWE, and we've been talking about, to many of the leaders here, about the need for a frictionless way to talk to the shopper. Because here's the other thing. A shopper will not download an app while they're shopping. It won't happen. So we've done primary research on this. We've talked to 2,000 shoppers. Only 8% of shoppers were willing to download an app while they were shopping. Now, there are some really good case studies out there and examples of some programs that have been wildly successful. Everyone's, have heard of the 19 Crimes, right? And it was awesome. Brown-Forman just came out with an AR experience, right? It's not meant to be experienced in the store. It's more post-purchase. But if I'm trying to communicate to my shopper and trying to convince a shopper to make a purchase, it has to be frictionless, right? So this is where mobile web-based AR has come in. And now I believe social AR, with what Snap is doing in Facebook, is going to be even more relevant as well and gaining more traction. So here, what we did is, the barrier here was there's an awareness problem. No one knows who Parakeeto is. They don't know what they stand for. They don't know any of the claims that they're making. So we have a big education issue to overcome. So how can we overcome that? So we developed this display that communicates all of the different benefits, but has an explainer video. So we're utilizing existing content. And we created a 360 game, right, where you're warding off the mosquitoes. You can share your score on social media, and tell your friends to go experience it. Some people say, well, did it work? Yeah, it worked. And I'll tell you some of the numbers behind it. And then a product recommendation tool. So you answer 3 questions, and it recommends what is the right product for you. The cool thing is that if that product was shot down on that display, you can then go back and purchase it directly from the website. So we're linking back. Now we're helping them with their e-commerce. The results so far, so this is still in market. We made initially 400 displays that went into Cabela's and a lot of independent sporting goods retailers. We got into right around 100,000 interactions over the first couple weeks, but what helped is that this allowed other retailers began to see this, and they said, well, we want this for our store. And so now what we're doing is making different iterations of the display and putting it into Whole Foods, Safeway, Albertsons. So we're actually creating a Power Wing now with the same experience that's going into all Safeway and Albertsons stores. So this is helping actually Parakeeto grow their distribution within the retail space. So retailers are beginning to buy into it, which is really exciting. The next step for them is this is now going international. So we've kicked off the project to translate this experience, improve upon it as well, right? Because here's the other thing is that this technology is consistently changing. So now there's markerless and things like that. Social, how can we engage the shopper in new ways? So this was using a marker-based system, right? It has the QR code, using your native camera and all that. Now we're looking to how can we gain more shoppers, because as we go international, the number of Android users drastically increases, which creates some complexity with that native camera feature. And so the side benefit. One of the there are three holy grails when it comes to point of purchase displays. The first one is how do I prove out my ROI on my display program? The second one is how do I increase the compliance rates? Fast-moving consumer goods, their execution rates of displays in traditional retail is right around 46%. It's really bad, right? And that's just a lot of money that retailers or the brands are wasting because their displays aren't getting set up in the correct spot or the correct location. What we were able to do with this is go back and find out which displays are being set up at the right location through Google Analytics, because we can then see when shoppers have begun interacting with the displays, right, and then begin to geofence. We've shown this to a couple other CPGs, and they said, you have no idea what you just came across, right, because they've been trying to figure this stuff out for years. And we've been dabbling in beacon technology and things like that to prove out display compliance as well. But then that third holy grail, I said there were three, is how do I make my display a destination? So most of the time, and I would guess that most of you who go to your store, you don't seek out a display like this. You just happen to come across it, right? And maybe it gains your attention and maybe it doesn't. What we're trying to do here is make it as a destination where I'm actually seeking out the display by creating an experience. Is it sexy? No, it's not really sexy yet. I think that's about to happen, right? As the technology begins to evolve and we're able to do more and more things with planar detection and you can get even more complex, I think things are about to get really special. And here's the other thing, we can do it in a scalable way now. So now a lot of companies have been doing a lot of futuristic things and talking about what the future of retail is going to look like. The retail's not going anywhere. It's really not. Not for the foreseeable future. I think the way that retail works is changing. I think what shoppers are looking for is changing. As we look at who the shoppers are and what they're desiring from a retail experience, that's shifting. I think we need to adapt to that to create these more memorable moments and engagements so that they become more brand loyal and things like that. The challenge. This is a challenge to the industry. You cannot ask a shopper to download anything while they are shopping, period. Doesn't happen. So if you are doing something before or after, if you're doing a magazine ad and someone's at home, ask away. They will do it. They will engage, right, to a certain extent. If you do it after, if you're a primary package, if you're doing something that's special when the shopper brings it home, chances are you'll have a decent percentage that actually engages with it. If you're trying to communicate to the shopper while they're in the store, it won't happen. That has to be accounted for in what the strategy behind displaying what your AR or VR offerings are. The industry needs more attention and investment made to mobile web-based AR because it's scalable now. There are buyers. I'm a buyer of mobile web-based AR, social AR, right? We don't do it in-house. We have partners who we work with, but we're buying. This is scalable now. We have clients who are begging for this type of stuff. But it has to be frictionless and it has to be scalable. The other thing is, cute doesn't sell products, right? I've seen many examples of AR, and it's like, oh, that's cute. Doesn't sell anything. What is the why? What is that call to action? What is the experience, and how is it going to help the shopper overcome a specific barrier? If it doesn't do that, if we don't understand what is the barrier in the first place, and then the AR or VR, XR, if it doesn't overcome that barrier, don't do it. Right? It has to overcome, it has to help with that conversation. Engaging, shareable, and based on insights and strategy has to be at the forefront. So for developers who are looking to sell your product or your services to brands or retailers, media company, ad agencies, there has to be that viable strategy behind it. That why. Why is this going to work? Why is it the right thing for the shopper? I've had numerous calls from developers or platforms that say, hey, this is the next thing. But why is it going to work for the shopper? Why is it the right thing for them? And if you can't answer that, I'm not interested. It's not going to work. And with that, that is it. I'll take questions.